Hi, it's Anna-Kaisa. Today I'm devoting this video to inversions, and more specifically the couple more complicated ones, Viparita Karani, the simple inverted pose, and Sarvangasana, the shoulder stand. So let's get started. So today I'd like to explore the two more complicated inversions, Viparita Karani, the simple inverted pose, and Sarvangasana, the shoulder stand. Any pose in which your heart is above the head is an inversion. So I've noticed a lot of people kind of get nervous when I ask them to do an inversion because they think that I'm asking them to do a headstand or a handstand. But in fact, any pose that has the heart above the head is an inversion. For example, Parahastasana, the jackknife pose, is an inversion. The bridge pose, Setu Bandhasana, is inversion, etc. But today, the two more complicated and difficult ones to assume, I'd like to explore them a little bit more and give a couple of variations on how to get into them, so that you can be more successful when you try them out, especially if you're not that familiar yet with these two inversions. It's easier for me to show these poses with the chair, but you can use also the wall. That's another really great prop to use in order to get into the pose and to get more easily and properly aligned. Alignment is quite important in these poses where you're placing a lot of weight on the neck and the cervical spine. When it comes to cautions, not everyone should even try to do these poses. I would recommend people with osteoporosis or osteopenia, people who are pregnant past the first trimester, and people who have significant cardiovascular disease to avoid these poses. Choose a more mild inversion, or perhaps just elevate your legs against the wall or on the chair. That already gives a little bit of a blood and energy flow from the legs toward the brain. And that's a great segue to the benefits of these inversions. Anytime you're inverting your body, meaning bringing your heart above the head, you're bringing energy and blood flow into the brain, which is really beneficial for the functioning of the brain, improving all mental functions, basically. With these two poses, we have our legs also significantly above the heart. That means that we are draining venous blood from the legs, which can relieve varicose veins, but you have more blood flow into the brain as well. These poses also stimulate the digestive system. They tone the diaphragm, the breathing muscle, and can balance the endocrine system. So I have a chair here. Really, any chair is fine as long as it's not going to slip. So nothing with wheels, of course, but make sure that your chair cannot slip from underneath you when you're using it. So you could even place it against a wall, so that way it definitely can't move. But like I said, the wall does the same thing as well. Of course, slightly differently, but pretty much the same way. You've heard me say this before, but with the inversions where we place a lot of weight on the neck, we would use some cushioning under the upper back and the neck. So yoga blanket, I have two here. The more weight you're placing on the neck, the more cushioning you will need. So for example, for Sarvangasana, the shoulder stand, I use 2 blankets. And it may be useful also for people with broad shoulders, a long neck, or if you're more heavier set, that also can be really more comfortable with more cushioning. But of course, you can use whatever you have at home. Bath towels are quite similar to yoga blankets, so use your imagination and use what you have. The one more important thing I'd like to mention is that when you are in this pose where you're placing a lot of weight on the neck, do not turn your head. This can be injurious to the neck. So let me demonstrate quickly first what it looks like and how you get into it so that you don't have to be turning your neck and turning your head while you're trying to do the pose yourself. So you can just listen to the instruction and not try to see on the screen what I'm doing. So if you use a chair, again, make sure it's not slipping, at least not very easily. Place your cushioning, whatever it is, the thicker end away from the chair, so the folded edge when it's a blanket or a towel. And the nice thing about the chair is that you can move it to the right place. If you're using the wall, you kind of have to experiment on how far you have to be from the wall. So I will roll onto the blanket. The head is off the blanket. The shoulders are on the blanket. Make sure that your shoulders can fit on the blanket. If they don't, then you need to open the blanket or the towel more and add a couple more blankets or towels so that you make sure that your shoulders are on the blanket, your elbows are on the blanket. We start with the feet resting and making sure that I can grab the chair. There's about 2 to 3 inches in between the edge of the blanket and the shoulders. That's how you know that you're in the right place on the blanket. You'll bend the knees and then use the feet to push the pelvis up, regardless of which pose you're doing. Here, we'll roll the shoulders underneath. If your shoulders are okay with that, there's no injuries or other vulnerabilities there. And for Viparita Karani, I will place the heel of the palm under the back rim of the pelvis. And if I feel stable, I'll bring both hands underneath, keeping my elbows shoulder width. My fingers are touching each other and the coccyx. Now I'm gonna let my weight sink on my hands and one by one straightening my legs. My legs should be vertical or almost vertical, and my torso should be at a 45-degree angle. And to exit, I will bend my knees over my face, release my hands, and slowly roll down. For the shoulder stand, again, I will use my feet to push myself up, roll my shoulders under. Here, my hands go higher up the back. My feet and pelvis are vertical in a straight line. And to exit, again, I'll bend my knees, put my hands down the back and the legs, and slowly lower down. So this was a quick demo of how you get into the pose using the chair. So as you can see, when you have the chair under your feet, it's much easier, especially for Viparita Karani, to get your hands in the right place and your shoulders and your elbows close enough to the body. I find that when I do this pose without the chair, it's definitely a lot harder to get into a comfortable place with my hands and elbows. And when it comes to the hand placement, the heels of the palms should go on the back rim of the pelvis, which is this bone right about here. And then my fingers touching and each other and the coccyx. And here is a version for Sarvangasana, the shoulder stand against the wall. Here it's a little bit more crucial where you place the blanket, so that it might be a little bit of a trial and error to find the perfect position, but there will be some space in between the wall and the blanket. So I'll roll onto the blanket, or blankets in this case, more than one. And I'll bend my knees so that my feet are flat against the wall. Now I'll press down with my feet to lift my pelvis up. Here I'm going to roll my shoulders under one by one, which helps me keep my elbows shoulder width apart. So now I'll bring my hands to my back to help support and straighten the pelvis. And here you can straighten the legs one by one. This could be perfectly good variation if you're not quite comfortable having both legs off the wall at the same time. But if you feel stable and up for it, you can bring both legs to vertical position and walk your hands up the back. Try to bring your body, except for the head, into a straight line in a vertical position. And to exit, bend your knees and bring the feet to the wall again. Release your hands and use your feet to lower yourself down slowly and rest with your legs against the wall. Simply resting with your legs elevated against the wall is a perfectly fine variation on either of these two inversions, but a variation on that elevates the pelvis slightly is to roll the blankets, make them into a roll basically. And I'll use the wall to push my pelvis up to place the blanket roll under my pelvis. And now straighten my legs. So this is a pretty comfortable, more restorative version of both Viparita Karani and Sarvangasana. So if you're not comfortable with these inversions, use this one, for example, as an alternative. So this was the wall version of Sarvangasana. Let's go back to the chair. So if you have your chair ready and your blankets, let's get started and let's try this pose together. So roll onto the blanket. Again, your head is off the blanket, your shoulders are on the blanket, elbows as well. Reach to grasp the chair and bring your feet to the edge of the chair with your heels off the chair. Now push up with the feet so that your pelvis comes up. Now here you can roll your shoulders under one by one. Now one by one, carefully placing the
heel of the palm on the back rim of the pelvis. Fingers touching each other, and slowly bring your weight on your hands. This is already a very good place to stay. As you can see, this is an inversion. So if you don't feel comfortable straightening your legs, it's perfectly fine for you to stay here. Or you can straighten out one leg at a time and stay here and then alternate. Or if you feel up for it and you feel stable enough, you can straighten both legs. So your back should be straight and not rounded. Breathe smoothly and naturally. And this is Viparita Karani, the simple inverted pose. This pose helps awaken energy in the first chakra. So bring your awareness in that coccyx area. Try to feel it opening. Mentally affirm, awake my sleeping powers. Awake. And to exit, bend your knees over your head and slowly release your hands and slide your back on the floor and the chair. You can proceed into corpse pose if you'd like, or you can try the shoulder stand. Push your pelvis up again, roll your shoulders under. And now bring your hands behind your back and straighten your legs. Walk your hands up toward the neck and straighten your pelvis. This pose is a little bit easier with the wall than the chair, where you can more easily do the 1 foot at a time, 1 leg at a time variation. Press your head on the floor and try to bring your body, except for the head, into a straight line. Placing weight on the neck can help us feel more expanded and peaceful. Mentally affirm, peace now floods my being. Peace now floods my being. And to exit, slide your hands down toward the buttocks and bend your knees over your face. And then slowly roll your back down. And bring the legs on the floor or the chair. Rest for a moment to enjoy the effects of this pose. And then, when you're ready, roll onto your right side and push yourself up. So these were the more complicated inversions that I like to teach. They are great at the end of a yoga class, yoga sequence, or yoga routine, as they
bring energy into the brain, which helps us also for our meditation at the end of the yoga session. So thanks for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.